There is a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Pursuant to Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, NISCA moves that the rule therein be suspended and an urgency be declared, and that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that Senate File Number 3 be given its second and third readings and be placed upon its final passage.
I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Niska, to explain the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. Senate File 3 is the Environment Bill. The final language of this was posted on the 7th, and it was a product of bipartisan, bicameral negotiation, and I urge member support.
Discussion. I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also urge member support.
There being no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its second reading.
Second reading, Senate File Number 3.
Second reading. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File Number 3, an act relating state government appropriating money for environment and natural resources.
I recognize the member from Rice, Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today as the co-vice chair of the Environment Committee. However, today acting as the co-chair of the Environment Committee, seeing how that Chair Fisher is not here today. The last time we saw this bill, there was no policy in it, and we had a $10 million cut to our 3 state agencies that the Environment Committee oversees. We have a very different bill before us today, a much more complicated bill, and this is largely due to the hard work of co-chairs Heintzman and Fisher, as well as leadership who helped get us to a final bill. I watched the discussion with the closed captioning on when the Senate heard this bill this morning, and the Senate Chair Herr said, "There is no happiness here," when referring to this bill. It truly is a compromise bill, and as I like to tell my children, when you compromise, that means everyone's unhappy, and ideally everyone is the same amount of unhappy. I will go through some of the things I am pleased about in the bill, but I am going to start with a few things I am displeased about in the bill. The shotgun zone was effectively eliminated for my part of the state, and now that decision will be left up to counties to decide if it's rifle or shotgun zone for hunting. We remove money to look into fish kills happening in the southern Minnesota part of our state. There are some changes to Amara's law, our PFAS and PFOS law. There is additional spending from the general fund and the dedicated environmental funds. And there is a permitting reform, which is a large portion of this bill. I have been told that there are both environmental and labor standards, and I hope that that is true. A few things I am excited about in this bill is a clean LCCMR, including our community grants program, as well as getting a report after 1 year to make sure that those programs are being funded as we wish. Outdoor schools for all, money for trees, enhanced outreach efforts, mercury skin lightening cream, outreach and education, and we keep our Department of Natural Resources, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and the Board of Water and Soil Resources running. I'm going to be voting green for this bill because I think that it's important that we fund government. And this process has truly been a compromise, and I hope that you can find enough in this bill that you also will vote green. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member from Crow Wing, Representative Heintzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just a couple of more items to talk about as we work on finishing up what was many, many months of work to get to this point, and I want to start by just saying how much I appreciated my co-chair, Chair Fisher. Chair Fisher was a tremendous partner through this entire process, and we worked very hard to keep our committee tight and working on the issues that are most important to Minnesotans, making sure that our parks are going to be open and that we have enhanced opportunities around the state, that we are supporting a number of the provisions that were just mentioned by Co-Vice Chair Purcell. We are very thankful for the compromise that we were able to pull together on permitting reform. I want to give a shout out to Senator Hochschild, who was working very diligently as my Senate author on permitting reform. This issue is one that has been pervasive and concerning, and something that the governor and the House and Senate worked together on to provide a step forward. It's not everything anybody wanted, but it is a great step in the right direction to help municipalities, to help businesses, to help those seeking permits. And that's something that I think we can all be proud of today. And it is that, a compromise, as was just mentioned. The community grants program language, Rep. Hollins, thank you so much for your support and help through that whole discussion. The LCCMR, unchanged in the bill, really, I think, a great, again, effort, making sure that we get these provisions here. There are a few other things that I want to quickly mention. Continuous bass season. Continuous bass season, members, it sounds, maybe unimportant to some, but Representative Nash, thank you. That was a great provision, and I've been out and about over the last few weeks, and fishermen are excited about this. Certainly those that I have spoken to in the lakes area. Crossbows, another year, that is extended, so DNR has time to put a study together for us, and we can look at that more closely with good data. PFAS fixes that were mentioned, looking at electronics, internal components, kids' recreational vehicles, that I don't think folks intended those things to be targeted in that language, and I'm very thankful that we were able to look at that in a bipartisan way and try to figure out a path forward. Also, language exempting firefighting foam used in airport hangars. That is a concern I think generally everybody has, and if there's an emergency, that we have the tools necessary to fight a fire. Veterans hunting and fishing licenses. That fee will be reduced to $5 for anyone with a service-connected disability over 50% effective March 1st of 2027. That's, I think, a terrific, again, bipartisan effort to get that done. And then lastly, abandoned watercraft. Representative Hansen and I, we were working on that. I think for a minute I was worried, but your work on that effort, on that issue is come to fruition, and we have a compromise agreement on abandoned watercraft. So that issue is being addressed. The lands bill is here, members. In case you were watching for the lands bill, it's also here. And I will wrap up with that and just thank folks for their support for the bill.
There's an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
Gordon moves to amend Senate File Number 3. The amendment is coded A3.
I recognize the member from Isanti, Representative Gordon.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to ask for a roll call on this amendment.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Representative Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In my district, we like trees, Christmas trees to be specific. We are home to the largest Christmas tree farm in the state. Wolson's is a multi-generational family farm. Everyone knows that trees need water, especially in the first year or two after planting. As you can all imagine, this farm covers a lot of acreage, and the area where they plant new trees changes from year to year. They need another well to be able to irrigate all areas of their farm. However, the 2021 change that prohibits new water use permits from the Mount Simon Hinckley Aquifer prevents that from happening. They have no other viable alternative for water. The amendment offered would simply allow the DNR to make exceptions to the prohibition of new water use permits for agricultural irrigation outside the 7-county metro area. The exception would only apply when there's no other feasible or practical water sources available and would require a water conservation plan. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Discussion to the amendment. I recognize a member from Crow Wing, Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. While I appreciate the amendment being offered today, this is an important issue. This Mount Simon aquifer, this was not a part of the global agreement that the chairs have come to, and so I would ask members, unfortunately today, I would ask them for a no vote.
Further discussion? I recognize the member from Morrison, Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To highlight this for the members, this impacts multiple counties in Minnesota. While the Mount Simon Aquifer is large and deep for the state of Minnesota, there are several areas in the state from the southern part of the state to east central Minnesota that are directly impacted by the fact that there is no other spot to get water. And so I appreciate Representative Gordon bringing this amendment, and I do urge support of this amendment that will help ensure more trees for the state of Minnesota. I think that this is some pretty simple policy that ultimately, members, when this was originally crafted a couple years ago, I think it had some really unintended consequences, and this aims to fix one of those unintended consequences. The legislators who have been working on this have been working in cooperation and collaboration with the DNR on this, and this would fix one of the unintended consequences and assist and help in this specific instance that Representative Gordon gave earlier and help many people on the edges of my own district as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member from Rice, Representative Purcell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm going to echo the suggestion of the co-vice chair Heinzman. Happy to bring this up next year. Thank you for bringing the amendment. Members, please vote no.
Representative Gordon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, this is an issue that's only important to a very small number of Minnesota farmers, but it would mean the world to them if we could fix this problem. If you like Christmas trees, vote green.
The clerk will take the roll on the amendment. The clerk will call the name of the member participating remotely.
Olson. Olson.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 41 ayes and 87 nays, the amendment is not adopted. The clerk will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File Number 3.
Third reading. Discussion to the bill. I recognize the member from Morrison, Representative Schultz.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, sometimes when I'm back home in my district, I have some of my friends that make a little bit of fun of me. They say things like, well, Isaac, you're a politician, and there's a disagreement, and you claim to be on both sides. Seems like you're with your friends, and you're with your friends. And in this instance, I'm with my friends. On this bill, members, there's a lot of positive inside this bill. I'm super grateful for the work that was achieved inside this bill to achieve some good work on permitting reform. I'm grateful just for members' sake to share a little bit about the elimination of the shotgun zone for a moment. I come from the very district that the shotgun zone passes through. If you live on the east side of the Mississippi, you can shoot with a rifle in my district. If you live on the west side of the Mississippi, like I do, you can only shoot with a shotgun. So to see this eliminated is about darn time. And thank goodness for the bipartisan support that that issue has had during this legislature, and I'm glad to see this change. But members, I want to talk a little bit about why I will be voting in opposition to this bill today. As a conferee, as someone who worked on a great number of bills in the environment space this session, with a whole bunch of bill presentations and a whole bunch of things to help make Minnesota more affordable and a better place to do business, I'm concerned with a lot of the contents here that specifically and directly impact the small farmers in my district. So moments ago, hours ago, members, you made claims that you wanted to support the farmers across the state and you cared about rural Minnesota. This bill contains fee increases that could not be seen through any greater lens than directly harmful to the small farmers in my district. I have spent time reaching out to the small farmers from east to west, from north to south, and to ask them their feedback when they see an environment bill coming down the tracks that could raise the cost for them. And the feedback from the smallest producers in my district who do have water permits in my district is that, you know what? This is going to result in hundreds of dollars of increases for the smallest producers over the biennium. And that's not to mention the average farmers in my district who will see thousands of dollars of increases. Oh, and by the way, this bill doesn't provide any sort of additional benefit for the permit that they have, so it just raises their costs. And what's embarrassing to me is what the DNR says in response. The DNR says, well, they're going to be able to get their permits so much faster. While at the same time, the same department that issues these permits, frankly, comes down on farmers, tells them that they can't do business, tells them that they can't use water, and honestly threatens the certainty for the farm families in my own community. So how can I stand here today and say that I can vote for a bill that increases the costs to provide for food security in Minnesota? Because it's not just my district, it's all across rural communities in this state, wherever farmers have water permits. And I'm concerned about it when there's no good reason to do so. If you go back to the history of why there needed to be a fee for water, was for this administration of water permits. Well, and if that's the case, and if there are more water permits today, then there should be more than enough revenue to pay for the administration of water permits. But during this entire session, the DNR has failed to tell us what benefit this is going to offer to the people of my district. And I'm not talking about big farmers or big agriculture. I'm talking about the small family farmers in my district and across this state. When talking to an above average farmer over the last few weeks, the slightly above average farmer said to me, you know, this actually has an even greater impact on the smaller producer. Because when it comes down to it, for the amount of money that they're able to squeeze off a smaller plot of land, it's going to be a higher cost for them. And that's a pill too tough to swallow for my community. So I understand that when you take a look at the whole of this bill, and that there's such incredible reforms in some really important areas of state government, I'm not going to do it at the expense of the families who live in my district. Because it's family farmers from east to west and north to south that have water permits in my district. And that's why I'll be voting no on this bill today.
I recognize a member from Crow Wing, Representative Heinzman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm told that this could potentially, looks like we may be kind of in a head-to-head with the Senate right now. This could be the first bill passed by the House and Senate and on its way to the governor's desk. And it almost seems fitting that this bill could be potentially that bill if it's successful. Parks, trails, the recreation that Minnesotans so much appreciate and needs our support here today in this chamber. I'm going to wrap it up quickly and just quickly thank again Senator Herr, a tremendous partner, thank you. My co-chair, Representative Fisher, again, just a great opportunity for the two of us to work together and to bring this bill together with our conferees and with our committees. And our partisan and nonpartisan staff, again, so grateful for their work and their support for us as members through this entire process. And I will leave it there. Members, I'd ask for your green vote today.
There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The clerk will call the name of the member participating remotely.
Olson. Olson.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 105 ayes and 26 nays, the bill is passed and its title is agreed to.